Hey, my friend, I want to thank you for coming on and listening to this podcast. It's exclusively about camp crafting, traditional camp crafting skills. And to that end, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't invite you to join the Traditional Camp Crafters Guild. Now, the Traditional Camp Crafters Guild is an incredible community of people who like camp crafting skills. If you're thinking bushcraft, hiking, backpacking, whittling away around the campfire, setting up tents, things like that. All these things are combined. So if you are ready to embark on a journey into a timeless world of traditional campcraft, then look no further. We are thrilled to invite you to join us. Now, what this community includes is network opportunities. Connect with fellow enthusiasts and seasoned experts passionate about traditional camp crafting. There's exclusive events just for the members. You can gain access to members-only gatherings and workshops designed to elevate your outdoor skills. And of course, we have roundtables with question and answer sessions. Engage in insightful discussions and pick the brains of industry leaders during our interactive sessions. And there's an incredibly large and ever-growing resource library. Unlock a treasure trove of guides, tutorials, and resources to enhance your knowledge and expertise. And what kind of guild would we be if we didn't have skills development? You can hone your craft with hands-on training and challenges and guidance from seasoned camp crafters, ensuring you're prepared for any wilderness adventure. So don't miss out on this chance to immerse yourself in a community dedicated to preserving and celebrating the art of traditional campcraft. All you have to do is go to honorableoutfitters.com/join the guild. Again, it's honorableoutfitters.com/join the guild. You can check it out for 5 days. There's no obligation. It won't even ask for your credit card unless you decide to continue. So go ahead, poke around and see what you find. And we can't wait to have you sitting around the campfire with us with your cup of coffee, hot cocoa, or warm tea, or whatever it is you drink. We are waiting for you. All right, sit down, grab that cup of whatever, and let's get going on this week's episode.
I am really excited about introducing this month's podcast guest. This guy, he walks the walk, talks the talk, and because of his passions, he's decided to follow it, and he made a company out of it. It's still pretty small, which is really cool, because whenever you talk to customer service or whenever you're trying to really get to people to understand things, it's a lot easier as companies get larger and larger and larger. They kind of lose sight of that, and it turns into more of a bureaucracy. But with Haven Tents, I was very quickly and easily able to get a hold of Derek and request that I talk to somebody in his company, it didn't have to be him, to be interviewed to discuss his incredible Haven Hammock tents. Now, I've been doing a lot of research on backpacking and hammocks and ultralight tents and things like that, especially since my troop is really starting to get into more backpacking. In fact, for the backpacking merit badge, like they got to do 30 miles, and I'm like, man, carrying the same stuff that I did last time just isn't going to work. And I was looking for something like a hammock, but what I found out with a hammock, and I have one, and I've used it, and it's okay. I get a fairly decent night's sleep and everything, but it's just not like awesome. You got to get just the right way, and then you got to kind of a la carte. You can go to a company like One Wind or something like that, and you can get everything there that you possibly need, but it can be kind of overwhelming, and all those little bits and pieces really start to add up. And when I thought about, like, man, I like hammocking, right? I really like the idea of getting in between trees, getting a good night's sleep, the lightweight and compactness of it. But when you start thinking, especially for winter camping or cold weather camping here in Ohio, fall, winter, and spring, those are really, some awesome times to go camping. You don't have to deal with the bugs, right? You got the perfect temperature. I'm also a cold sleeper, so when it's cooler temperatures, I honestly sleep a little bit better. So for me personally, I knew, like, man, if I get a hammock, I'm going to have to get an underquilt. I'm going to have to get a top quilt, because you can use a sleeping bag, but a sleeping bag and a hammock doesn't work quite as well. So a top quilt certainly makes all that a lot easier. Going to have to get a fly, all these other bits and pieces. So throughout all my research and my deep diving and everything, I discovered the Haven tent. Now, what makes the Haven hammock tent so unique is it is a flat laying hammock. And you can also use it as a bivy tent. Now, it doesn't qualify as an ultralight setup. However, again, when you start adding up all the bits and pieces of weight of a regular hammock and underquilt and things like that, and what you get with a hammock setup from, the complete package, it really pretty much comes close to equating. It may not be, ounce for ounce, but it's pretty daggone close. And with the hammock tent, you can even upgrade it with the spreader bars, and we'll get into that in a later video. But you can upgrade it and cut some ounces that way as well, so then it's more comparable to a more lightweight system. And of course, there's a couple options. If you're like me, you may want to get the XL, but if you're narrow or shorter, then you may want to get just the traditional Haven tent. If without further ado, I'm really excited because I learned so much about the product. I learned so much about the company talking to Derek of Haven Tents. And I'm really excited to bring this interview to you so maybe you can make an informed decision and see if the Haven tent is right for you. So here we go. I'm happy to introduce you to Derek of Haven Tents.
Welcome to Honorable Outfitters. Today we have a special guest, the CEO and founder of Haven Tents, Derek Tillotson. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Haven Tents, you've got to check this company out. It is on fire. It's everywhere that you look anymore. And they got a unique take on hammock camping. Mr. Tillotson, thank you so much for joining us today and talking to us about your company and yourself.
Mr. Dyer, thank you so much for having me on the podcast with you. It's awesome to be a part of this community.
So we're going to dive right into it, man. Tell us a little bit about your background in camping and outdoor adventure.
So like many people, I was introduced to the outdoors by my grandfather. He was a scoutmaster from Long Island, New York, had been in the scouting program forever. And so when he moved to Utah to be closer to his grandkids, he started taking us outside. And he'd have a van full of grandkids, and he'd make us, rock back and forth to help the van go up all the hills. And there were lots of great memories created with my grandfather visiting some of the amazing sites in and around Utah. And my dad adventured outdoors in other ways with skiing and snowmobiling and things. And, generally I grew up in the Scouts, and so went, river rafting with the youth group and went camping. Became an Eagle Scout, and that's kind of how I fell in love with my time outside. Now that I'm a dad, I'm trying to recreate some of these memories. My grandfather is now gone, but hopefully some of those traditions of loving the outdoors and experiencing the outdoors and having to rock back and forth to help the minivan get up the hill. Hopefully some of those things will continue on.
That's awesome. So I have to ask, since you're an Eagle Scout, what was your Eagle project?
My Eagle project was giving meals to the Homeless Youth Resource Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. So we would deliver meals twice a week, I want to say, for the period of like 2 or 3 months. And it was awesome. I would bring other youth to help me with it, and just to see peers, people our own age that were homeless, and hear their situations was pretty crazy. And so anyway, that was my Eagle Scout project.
It's pretty cool that it was mission-based. I like that. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. What's a fond memory that you have, an interesting story of camping when you were a kid?
Camping when I was a kid. So I would say a lot of my style of camping has evolved to be off-grid, other than the stuff that I would do with my grandfather, which was great, super memorable. But my cousins and I started just kind of going back behind our house in the Wasatch Mountains in Utah. And so from my house, you could look out and you could see this big flat rock. And it looked like a dice, a big piece of granite that was on its side. And we would look for it and we would say, okay, let's try to hike up there. And so we got all of our camping stuff and we just set out into the scrub oak, which, if you're unfamiliar with scrub oak, in my opinion, they are the worst tree ever. It's an oak tree, but just like at the perfect height to like scrape your face. And they only get about, so high. So you're crawling through these things. And my cousins and I are just bushwhacking through this. We're probably, 13 or 14 years old at this point. And we make it up there to this big boulder. And it's like, it looked big from our house, but now that we're here, it's 15 feet high. Think of like a dice that's about 15 or 20 feet high, right? And luckily there was one scraggly scrub oak that was growing up alongside this thing. So we were able to climb up, and we actually camped out on top of this cube. And so we got rocks from the ground, and we kind of put a perimeter. So if anybody started rolling in the middle of the night, they wouldn't wake up falling off of a 20-foot cliff. Instead, they'd wake up by bumping into one of these rocks. But probably the most memorable part of this whole thing was we forgot a can opener. And so we had our cans of chili just staring at them. There's no way we're going to go through all those scrub oak again to go home to try to get the can opener. And so we figured out how to bash them open with granite. And granite, as you know, is a very flaky rock. And so as we're bashing the tops of these cans open to try to make a little bit of space for our spoons to get in there, we're eating, grit. And so like super scrappy, right? We didn't see any amazing animals, but just like in our backyard, figuring stuff out and learning how to camp outside with me and my two cousins was pretty memorable. The funny thing is we still camp every year together. And we have, now it's a business write-off, it's a business expense. I tell my wife, I don't want to go camping. I have to because of my business. I'm creating content. It's a tough job, but somebody has to do it. And last year we went up to the Happy River in Alaska, and we pack raft out. So now the adventures are a little bit more polished. We actually, bring the can opener, so to speak. But it was just fun to try to figure it out together.
Amen. You learn a lot of perseverance in those kind of scenarios and those situations.
Exactly.
That's cool.
You don't really remember the trips that go right, where everything is just clipping along. You really remember the ones where there's a little bit of adversity.
Those are the best memories, for sure. Yeah, those are the ones that you call back on when you're at a reunion, whether it be a family reunion or school reunion, or you just meet somebody at the Lowe's parking lot or something. Those are the things you fall back on, for sure. So, how did you stay involved in camping that led you currently to be the founder and CEO of Haven Tents?
Yeah, great. So on a professional level, I was involved with sales and, marketing and things. And my family and I actually took a gap year, and we realized that our kids were young enough. We had 3 kids at the time, 6, 4, and 1, 2 boys and a girl. And we decided to take a gap year. And I built my business to a point where it was kind of self-sufficient and I could kind of manage it from afar. And so we sold our house and traveled full time, went to 38 countries in a year. And as part of this journey, I was creating content for social media. I'm a very busy person. And so I was just making content for hotels and travel companies. And so we would reach out to hotels. Hey, we're a traveling family. We'd love to stay, and we'll make content in exchange for a stay. And so we kind of got these free trips around free stays as we were traveling the world together. It was an amazing, amazing year. And coming off of that year of creating content, which is videos for social media, videos for YouTube and things, my family has a ranch up there, and I was laying in a regular hammock and, just feeling that constriction and feeling that banana curve, and thought, man, how could I do this differently? And I started to kind of pencil out how I would design a different type of hammock. And I do not have a strong background as a hammock camper. In fact, before, all of my camping was based off of ultralight. And I would be so stoked to have my little dinky pad and just A-frame tarp in case it rained, right? And I was always the guy to brag about how light my pack was. But I found there was a correlation between a light pack and a rough night's sleep. And so anyway, and some of you may try to argue the opposite, but honestly, the only thing that sleeps well when your pack is nothing is your conscience. Like, oh man, I'm so proud that I didn't carry that in, But the honest truth of it is, you're going to wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning, and you're going to be awake for the rest of the night because you're not tired enough to fall back asleep. Anyway, that was my previous experience. So here I am laying in a regular hammock saying, this is nice, but I couldn't spend the night like this. How could I create a truly flat laying hammock? And so mind went to work on that. Pencil came out and started kind of thought experimenting how I could engineer or design something different. And honestly, a bit of beginner's luck. I won't go into the product creation yet, because you may have some other questions there, but total beginner's luck with that first prototype of the Haven tent. But that's what kind of led me into it. My background is in marketing and in social media content creation with that year of travel. And so that kind of led me into my role at Haven Tents, being both the founder, but also kind of the chief marketing officer, and really enjoying the content creation, those darn content trips that I have to go on all the time.
Now, before we get into the Haven Tents aspect of it, do you still have your socials and your accounts for your other aspect of your life?
Yeah, we've done less and less with it. And now it's almost just like you can still go and search 5 Take Flight on YouTube and see some of our adventure. And all 54 videos that I made in a sequence of our weeks of travel are on, on YouTube, and the Instagram is still there. But right now it's just kind of a journal for the family, so we can look back. In fact, my daughter came today and said, "Hey, I want to watch the video of us in Australia." And so today I watched that video. Honestly, I've probably racked up most of my own views on that channel. I'm my own favorite subscriber, but at the same time, just the treasure that it is for my family to go back and relive these moments is pretty special.
You designed your own Haven tent. You do tell us the process behind that. Like, did you start with lightweight materials in mind? Did you start with cotton bed sheets? Like, right. What was the process with that?
So I don't know how to sew, right? That was the first obstacle. And honestly, the whole journey of creating a Haven tent or any outdoor product, unless you have a background in product creation, I did not. I was much more of a storyteller and online marketer. And so I did not have a background in actually making like a thing, right? And so every single door that I went through, was something that I had to learn or a problem that I had to solve. So it's basically just problem solving for like a year and a half. And then continuing to problem solve, because once you launch a product, that's when the problems really start. But anyway, so the first step is, learning how to sew, or finding somebody who knew how to sew. That would be a lot easier than learning how to sew, was finding somebody who knew how to do it. So I had some drawings. Again, it was kind of a thought experiment. I kind of envisioned myself, okay, if I were to lay here, if I were to do this, do that, what would happen to the sag, the tension, what would happen here and there? And so I kind of went through all of the puzzle pieces of the problem here, and then ended up with some drawings. I went to Home Depot and bought some tarps at first, just like some tarps, and then cut them out into templates. I'd ordered some material from Ripstop by the roll. Again, not really knowing anything about material, having to research that. What material would I use? And so laid out these tarps, but then I found that as I moved the tarps, they would flex and they would bend and they would kind of alter their shape. So then I got that, the stuff that you lay down when you're painting a wall or something like that beat board. I bought a roll of that, and then that became my templates. And so I showed up at my wife's cousin's house, who makes baby blankets for Etsy. That's my sewer. And so I showed up at her house with these cardboard templates and laid them out and said, "Hey, can you make this hammock?" And she stitched them together and did a great job. The material that we went with was like a 20D ripstop, which ended up being too lightweight. It was kind of tenuous. It did work. And honestly, had my first prototype been as bad as my second and my third prototypes, I would have probably canned the whole project and we wouldn't be on having a call right now. But we got some beginner's luck. I don't know if you've read the book, The Alchemist, but it was one of those things where the universe kind of conspires to help with that first step to kind of give you a taste of success. But then it's hard for the rest of the whole time. But so you have that taste of that initial success. So that propels you to keep trying.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. All right. When did you guys finally decide to set up a shop and start producing them?
Right. So we launched we launched Haven Tents through Kickstarter. And so we had our first prototype that was great. Then we went to a professional prototyper that didn't do a very good job on the second and third, and they were total disasters. And then by the third prototype, we kind of figured out a little bit more of what we could do. I'd found a new prototyper, somebody who could help with that. And then we started working with a shop that could help, take a prototype into an actual manufacturable good. And then we started working with some factories in China to get samples from there. There's no contract factories in the US. And so really to make something in the US, you have to either do a cottage industry where you're doing it yourself. And my hat's off to those guys that run the cottage industry stores. There's Majestic or Superior Hammocks, and there's a few other companies that do it kind of as a cottage shop here, which is awesome. I don't have a background in manufacturing or in sewing, and so that option wasn't available to me. And so we found a factory in China. They produced a good prototype. And so here I had my production prototype, right? And we launched on Kickstarter. My background in content creation, I was able to make a video, make some of the socials, but I did it super. And if you visit our first Kickstarter, it looks homemade. And that's what it was. I do not have a background in graphic design, but I just kind of like whipped stuff together. I was so cheap and I wanted to make money on my Kickstarter. I wanted it to pay for the first, round of production. When you work with the factory in China, you can't just order 6 units. You have to order like 100 or, more. And so our first order, I think, was for 1,000 hammocks, which is a heck of a lot. But to get the pricing and things and everything, that was the order that we needed to do. So we launched on Kickstarter. And I told the story of, I've designed the world's flattest, most comfortable hammock. Come and check it out. That was the story that I told on Kickstarter. And people showed up for us. So we sold about $98,000 worth of pledges. I'm not sure exactly how many hammocks that is, but it was $98,000 that we raised, which funded our first round of production, which was awesome. And so that funded our first round of production. The tents arrived not without some issues and some difficulty, which I may or may not go into depending on the questions you ask. But then once we fulfilled our Kickstarter pledges, I had like this container. It wasn't a full container, but it was a heck of a lot. It was like 4 pallets of tents. And I'm looking at these things like, oh, darn it, I'm never going to sell these things. And I'm starting to do like if I sell them at cost, I'm pretty sure they will sell and I'll be able to like recoup some of my investment, because I ended up having to add a little bit of extra to that first round of production. Anyway, and so I'm sweating it. And then COVID happened and everybody discovered that they couldn't do those big family trips anymore. They couldn't fly around. So instead they're going to camp in their backyard or they're going to go camping with friends. And the outdoor industry blew up. And the timing for us was great, but it was also terrible. Like I wish that we had started a few years before COVID so we could really capitalize on that upswing in interest. But as it was a great, tailwind for us as a company and definitely helped us get things going.
That's cool. What goes into the quality control aspect of the New Haven tents, since they're coming from out of country?
Yeah. So it's gotten better and better over time, right? The first time that you make something, there's going to be some issues. So just to kind of touch on that, the first issue that we had was the design that we had given the factory that we had approved in our production sample. So you get a production sample that is spot on. You say, okay, let's make more of these, right? And then when they go to make the one production sample that they definitely take their time with, then some issues developed. One of those was an issue with the rainfly. We have these ties on top of the rainfly and they went through. And so as it would rain on the rainfly, water would wick through the toggles and they would kind of drip into the hammock, which is frustrating as I can understand. And so we had to remake all of those rainflies and we had to remake them during COVID, so factories are shut down and shipping is super difficult. And we figured out a way to do it and actually pivoted to a new factory to help us with that because of the COVID thing. And every time it's kind of like whack-a-mole to a sense, but we've always stood behind our products and we've always made it right for our customers. And it's never been big issues. We don't have hammocks exploding or, like there's never any big issues, but it'll be like a small performance issue. Like there's a little loop that goes onto the side that hooks the rainfly closed that you can use. I think only probably 10% of users have ever even seen this feature, but we had an issue where some of those were poking out. And unfortunately, like if that happens, we would replace the whole hammock, we would get it back, and then we would make the correction and then sell it as a second. And so a big part of my life for that first year was not fielding complaints, but I was the fulfillment center. I was the customer service team, and I was the marketer, and I was the finance. I was really a team of one for that first 6 months until we brought on somebody else to help. We brought on somebody to help with fulfillment first, and then we brought on somebody to help with operations. And I was still doing customer service. Now we have more people on the team that kind of do some of these different things. But your initial question is, what is the quality control like? It's basically giving constant feedback and saying, hey, focus here, focus there, focus there. And then on the customer standpoint, making sure the customers never feel like they got a lemon or they got something that they're not happy with. And if you read through our reviews, we've been able to do that really well. And as a new company, people do give you a bit of leeway or whatever with that. They're not going to be as strict as if they bought something from a Patagonia or something. They understand that, hey, we're a small shop. This is a new product. Thanks for pioneering this with us. At the same time, we don't want to use up all of that equity. Like, people are supporting us. And so if you go to the Haven 10 Adventure group, you're going to see some people talking about some of those issues, but we're always there taking care of them. And I love every single time there's a quality issue that pops up there on that group. You'll see like the first 6 comments are from people that have dealt with our customer service and have had a good experience. Like, oh, don't worry, reach out to customer service, and they'll tag me in the post. Derek, what do you think you can do here? And we always take care of them. And so we've definitely grown, but we're not so big that like each customer isn't important to us. So we want to make sure that every single person that has a Haven tent has confidence in it, and that they're out there in the woods having a good experience.
It's pretty awesome that you guys stand by your product the way that you do. And, you can go to Walmart, you can get a hammock. It's definitely not going to be a Haven hammock tent, though. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But the fact that you guys are a smaller cottage industry, right? And someone can contact your company and get a pretty quick turnaround response. It's not like being on Walmart and using their little chat bot or something like that, or Amazon even, for that matter. Your guys' company, I think, is at a prime state for people who are in the outdoor industry really to discover you guys and get an honest experience from it. Even if your products, quote unquote, aren't exactly made in the USA, you being the founder, the CEO, the one who actually designed it, you're not importing something over from India Mart that's just mass produced. Like, your fingers are still heavily involved in it. I think this is a great opportunity for some fantastic things in the outdoor community. All right. So your tents itself, you guys say that you sell better sleep. Is that right? Sell better sleep.
Yeah.
Right. So tell us about how that works. Like, I've done some hammock camping, but like you, I think they're pretty comfortable. And I know if you go at a cockeyed angle and you lay your head off the side and things, you can get a little bit of flatter sleep. But your tents offer something that's very special, and you don't wake up with some weird neckline from the pressure of sleeping in a regular hammock. So tell us about that.
Right. So there's a big difference between 100% flat and 80% flat. If your mattress at home that you're sleeping on, right now, if your mattress at home was 80% flat, you would throw it away. There's no way you would tolerate anything but 100% flat from your bed at home. And we think it's the same with a hammock. Hammock shouldn't get this pass because, it's flat for a hammock. There's always this little asterisk on there, right? And so our goal is to create a 100% flat sleeping surface that helps recreate, or that recreates the at-home sleep experience. That's really the goal of Haven tents. 100% flat, recreating the at-home sleep experience. And when I say that we're selling sleep, when I launched the company, I looked at the size of the hammock space, and there are a ton of hammock campers out there, but relative to campers, it's a very small circle, right? If you think of like the whole camp, like everybody who camps, it would be like looking at the earth, at the sun, and then seeing the little earth right there next to it, right? Like, it's teeny, the amount of hammock campers. And so a lot of hammock companies are competing on ounces. They're competing on small feature improvements. And we are trying to appeal to the camping industry in general, saying this is a better way to camp. Not, this is a better hammock. This is the better way to sleep outside. So we're trying to make that circle as big as possible. And even if you don't camp because you think you won't get a good night's sleep, we invite you to come and try the Haven tent. So we're actually trying to increase. And we did a survey last year, and we found that 35% of our users consider themselves non-campers, which is insane. The fact that our adoption, the biggest single segment for us is non-campers coming to Haven Tents to try to camp, maybe for the first time, or maybe they haven't camped in a while or whatever. So we're so excited to be introducing more people to the outdoors.
Why is there an appeal, you think, to use a hammock tent versus just a traditional ground tent?
Well, people have tried to sleep in a ground tent, I think. And you can put an air mattress in there, but at the end of the day, you're sliding off the pad. There's hot spots on your shoulder, right? And so people have this notion, like me, that if I try to sleep on just an air mattress on the ground, there's going to be a root or a rock that eventually is going to win out, and I'm not going to sleep too well. Mm-hmm. And even now, when I'm forced to sleep on the ground out of necessity or whatever, I don't sleep as well as I do when I'm flying in a Haven tent. It really is a unique sleep experience, and it recreates the at-home, like what people have grown accustomed to from their beds at home.
Well, is there any concern for somebody who's sleeping in your guys' hammock tent? Because if those of us who are listening to the podcast and you driving somewhere or something, you try to imagine, if you will, an air mattress that is suspended between two trees, and it's covered up in some type of tent body. How can someone sleep on your mattress and your little Haven tent? Because all your tents come with a nice pad, from what I was researching.
That's right.
And if you shift off to the left or to the right, if you are not dead center, is that going to make your hammock tent off kilter one way or the other?
I mean, it might lean a little bit, but it doesn't ever feel tippy at all. And I guess I really should have started this call by explaining exactly what it is a Haven tent is, for those that, like you said, are just listening to the audio here. So where most hammocks are material suspended between 2 points, you have this curve, right, that you try to lay in. You can lay in at a diagonal to try to get 75 or 80% flat. What we've done is we've basically recreated a suspension bridge around an air mattress, right? So the air mattress is the roadway of a suspension bridge. It kind of bends up. If you look at the Golden Gate Bridge or whatever, it actually kind of arches up, which kind of helps, bear some of that load. Or if you look at an unloaded semi-trailer, it's bowed up. When the weight gets on it, it's pushed flat. So we have this built-in camber to our system so that when you lay in it, you lay flat. But unlike a mattress that's flat on the ground, you have the sidewalls that help create this perimeter around you. So if you were to lean or to slide to one side, you have the hammock wall that you're now resting against that confines you onto staying on the pad. Now, the pad will naturally kind of curve around you just a little bit, which helps you stay centered. So it's not like you're going to slide off. And even if you do scoot yourself way to the edge of our hammock, the hammock will not flip because you are suspended very far below, about 36 inches below the anchor points. And so think about swinging on the swings as a kid. Like the dream was always to swing around that top bar, but you could never do it because you're hanging too far below it. It's the same concept. Now in traditional bridge hammocks, the suspension is actually right in line with the sleeping platform. So they do become kind of tippy. And that's how our system, differs. Technically, it would be a bridge hammock, but the spreader bar it's kind of like this weird mix between a gathered end hammock and a bridge hammock, and something that's completely our own, which is why the U.S. Patent Office gave us a patent on our design.
Oh, that's pretty fantastic. So those of you who aren't familiar with hammocks, and maybe you're trying to consider a better way of sleeping, because like what Derek said, sleeping on the ground and you find those rocks or those sticks or that pine cone in your back in the morning, it just doesn't feel very comfortable. Traditional hammocks, they tend to wrap around you kind of like a cocoon. Even if you angle yourself a little bit, there's going to be some of that wrap around and that tension around you. However, with these Haven tents, you can sleep flat on your back or on your sides even, and you don't have that cocoon feeling. But it is going to grab you a little bit on the sides just to keep you centered, like Derek said. That sounds like a dream. It really does to me.
Exactly.
All right. So the spreader bars. Now tell us about these spreader bars, because that's a term that the person who's maybe brand new to hammock camping isn't aware of. So what is the spreader bar for, or what does it do exactly for the hammock?
Yeah, so you're probably going to be, you would, recognize a spreader bar because you'll see them in a traditional backyard hammock. It's the wooden posts at the end of those mesh hammocks, right? That just helps keep the space open. And so our hammock lays completely flat without the spreader bar. In fact, you don't need them. The only thing that it does is it creates more internal volume inside the hammock so that the sidewalls aren't pressing into you as much. And at first, I just used a PVC pipe with, those things that you put on furniture to help slide them on carpet, those like little pads. So I had a PVC pipe on 2 of those. Those were my first spreader bars in my prototype, right? And I kind of saw, oh, wow, yeah, if I put that in there, it doesn't actually change the flat lay of the hammock, but it creates more internal space.
Genius. I like it.
Yeah, right.
So tell us about the features of inside the hammock. If you're laying in there, do you have a place to put your glasses, your cell phone, and your flashlight, anything like that?
Right. So honestly, as somebody who loves the outdoors and I was going to be my first customer, right? I wanted to really make this thing into something that I could use. And so you have this flat sleeping platform, which is the most critical function of this. One other thing that you mentioned was with a traditional hammock, you have sidewalls that kind of wrap around you and you can't see a darn thing. And this is true of a ground tent as well. In a ground tent, you like spend all day hiking to this beautiful lake and then you crawl into this little cave and you hide, right? It's like, and then in the morning you like emerge from like the rain fly and you unzip everything and now you can see the world. But from, dusk to like from in or out, there's nothing to see. And you may have this little window in a tent or whatever that's teeny. In a hammock, you might be able to peek around and see it. But in a haven tent with these low sidewall arcs that come down, getting in and out is super easy. It's easier than getting in and out of a chair because it like goes underneath you and then it goes out. Anyway, it's super easy to get in and out of. And then you have the whole like 180 degree or 360 degree view. Really, when you're laying, you have like this full panorama before you that you can see. So visibility is, I'm trying to go on from the bottom, the pad. Now we're talking about the visibility. Then you have the spreader bars to help keep it open. And then there are 6 pockets, 3 on each side of the hammock for all of your stuff. Above you, there is a structural ridge line, which makes it so that tree spacing isn't critical. A lot of times people say, oh, I got to find trees in the perfect right spacing otherwise my hammock won't work. With this, as long as you have like 10 or 11 feet in between the trees, you can make it work. And, anything more than that, you just need to have long enough straps because the hammock has this wire that goes across the top, a structural ridge line that helps keep the structure in place. The cool thing about that is you can rest things from there. We use a really strong line for that. It's a seatbelt material that's like an inch. And so it's really super strong. You can hang your pack from it. You can hang your entire body weight from this thing. You can use it to help you get in and out of it too. From there, at the connection points of the hammock, you have these carabiners, and the carabiners integrate right into our rainfly. One thing that I hate about setting up a tent, it's always frustrated me, is that you have to set up your ground tent twice. You set it up once, you get the poles in there, and then you have to set it up again for the rainfly. You got to do the whole song and dance, and then when you're packing it away, it's the same thing. You pack it up twice. You pack up the rainfly, and then you put away the poles, and you roll up the whole tent. And you literally have to do everything twice. With us, it's integrated. You can take the rainfly off, but if not, it's just buckled right into the carabiners on the ends. And so when I go to set up, I hook one end of the carabiner to my tree straps, the other end of the carabiner, put in the poles, put in the pad, and I'm done. And it's not like a complicated pole. It's a pole that just kind of collapses. It's really simple. And so that's the rainfly. The rainfly can be guyed out. There are some complaints that our rainfly is too small. And the reason why I've built the rainfly is, again, as my first customer, because that's what I need. And I wanted it to be bespoke or customized to the system. So a lot of times when people hammock camp, they have these giant rainflies that they have to guy out. And again, about setting up camp twice, you set up your hammock once, you get all of that sorted, then you have to go and you have to pull all of these lines. Most hammock camps will end up with 8 different lines between the hammock, and then the ridge line for the rainfly, and then the tarp anchors that are going out as well. You end up with 8 different things that you have to be a sailor, right? It's like rigging the ship for sail or something. There's a lot of stuff that you have to do. With us, we have 2 anchor points, and then the rainfly can actually just lay over the hammock. And then there's in the four corners of the sleeping platform, the four corners of the pad on the outside, there are toggles and eyelets on the rainfly. So you can actually lock it down for storm mode and it becomes a floating bivvy. Both the hammock body and the rainfly have 4,000 millimeter waterproofing. So the whole thing becomes like this floating bivvy tent. Now that's going to create some condensation in things when you're in it like that. And so but there are vents at the ends. So if there is a breeze, that'll help, reduce some of the condensation, but you can guy out the fly as well. So you can put it in porch mode or you can guy out the whole thing. And then you have this nice breezeway that you can create. But the best part is, go ahead and ask me, Derek, what's the best part?
What's the best part, man?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked. The best part is, what if there's no trees? And we get this comment on our socials all the time. Well, it looks pretty good. What if there's no trees? The best part of this system is that if there are no trees, it can be pitched on the ground as a regular bivvy tent. So for people that are familiar, a bivvy is like a single person small tent that can just be laid on the ground, super simple. And our system can be pitched in the same way. Be very similar to like the A-frame tent that you make with just like with a thing of paracord and a tarp, right? So you basically use trekking poles or you use driftwood or like a fence post or your motorcycle or whatever. I've seen people get really creative on this. And you just kind of create this frame, then the hammock goes in between it on the ground. The hammock body itself is waterproof, so it can be right on the ground too. So I went to the salt flats and pitched my hammock out on the salt with not a tree in probably 50 miles. And it's such a cool video, but been able to make some fun content with that.
When someone buys hammock and they decide to get in this world of hammock camping, it's really nice that yours really does set up just like a regular tent, because someone who is old school and has been camping out in their backyard or something, that's something they're easily familiar with. That's something they can automatically connect with. And they can start out nothing else in their backyard if they don't even have any trees and then find a park or something later on. But someone who's getting into hammock camping, one of the things that comes up eventually is your sleep system in combination with the hammock. So here in Ohio, and up where you are too, you get some cold weather. But here in Ohio during the winter months, or even during the late fall or early spring, oftentimes we have to be concerned about drop temperatures, especially late at night. So the first question I have is, can you use just a standard sleeping bag that you get from your big box store in your hammock, or do you really need to get a hammock sleeping bag for optimum use?
Okay, so insulation is one critical thing that people don't think about when they first get into hammock camping. So I'm going to get in this hammock with my sleeping bag and I'm going to be all right, A-okay. But they don't realize that there's this column of air that's constantly moving underneath them. And there's something called CBS in the hammock world. Do you know what CBS stands for? Cold butt syndrome. It's a thing in the hammock community, CBS. And so people, they buy underquilts generally that goes under the hammock. Anyway, I didn't even know what an underquilt was when I started this company, because ours uses an insulated air mattress. And so we are already insulating you from beneath, right? So that box has been checked. There's no additional special insulation that you need from below with our system. Sometimes it freaks hammock campers out because they're so used to having an underquilt under their hammock. So, well, where does the underquilt go? Say, well, you have an air mattress. They say, well, the underquilt, it traps air so it stays warm. That's what a mattress does. A mattress traps air as well. So the underquilt we use an air mattress in lieu of an underquilt. So that being said, a regular sleeping bag is totally fine. In fact, the majority of the time that I go camping, it's just with my kids, especially, it's just with a regular sleeping bag. Right? Or if I'm camping out in the backyard, which I've been doing recently because the river is starting to run right now, I just go with a camping blanket, really. And that's all I use. My favorite sleep system meaning a sleeping bag that goes with our hammock, is the Zen Bivy system. And I liked it so much that I started trying to develop my own sleeping systems. Like, you know what? Like, they have the best. They have the best materials. They have the best product, and it works perfectly with our setup. And their vision aligns with ours, trying to recreate the at-home sleep experience. You would never sleep in a mummy bag at home, right? Like, you would never do that. You would sleep under your sheet so that when you roll, the sheet stays right there on top of you. It's not rolling around with you. And in a mummy bag, when you roll from side to side, which you can do really easily in a Haven tent, when you roll from side to side, you're actually compressing insulation. And then if it's down or synthetic, it has to reloft and then reheat. And so every time you roll, you're basically making your body rewarm that space that was compressed and now has expanded. So what the ZenBivy does is it actually stays on top of you, and then you're able to move underneath it. And so we now sell ZenBivy as part of haventents.com. We've connected our stores so that anytime you order from a ZenBivy on haventents.com, it actually ships from ZenBivy, and they're able to kind of manage the customer experience from that side.
I'm 6'1" and 230 pounds. And I've been looking at your guys' tents and trying to figure out which one I want to get. And you guys offer 3 different versions. You have the regular, you have the XL, and you have the Safari. Can you run us through the main differences between those 3? Your video that you did on your website is fantastic, by the way, but go ahead and tell us real quick.
Thank you. Yeah. So 3 different hammock models, 2 different sizes. So the standard is anybody who is my size or smaller. We say if you're 160 pounds or below, we would steer you towards the standard. If you're like 150 to 180, we would or 170 or so, we would say, how much space do you want? We actually have a quiz on our site. If you visit haventents.com, you'll see a pop-up to take a quiz to help find the Haven right for you. But anybody bigger than me, we steer towards the XL. Anybody my size or smaller, we steer towards the standard. I kind of developed it for me. The first negative feedback that we got from those Kickstarter supporters is, hey, this is a little tight on my shoulders. And said, okay, great. I need to make a wider version. So that's why we developed the XL. And then we found that a lot of our users were not carrying them far. They were using them in their backyards, or they were using them for car camping. So then I thought, if weight wasn't an issue, just how comfortable could we make this thing if we made a durable hammock? And so I was just walking the outdoor retailer show yesterday in Utah, and there are so many canvas tent companies, but there's no canvas hammocks out there. And so that's what we created. We created Haven Safari. So Haven Safari and Haven XL are actually the same size. And so they're both the bigger frame. It's just a use case. If you're going to carry it, go with one of our backpacking hammocks, being the standard Haven tent or Haven XL. And if weight isn't an issue because you're driving it somewhere, you're using it in your backyard, then go ahead and go with Haven Safari. My Haven Safari has been set up in my backyard for the last 2.5 years. And it's a different color because it's a little sun bleached, but it's still waterproof and it is still going strong. In testing, we put 2,260 pounds of salt and me on top of Haven Safari. We had 2,000 pounds in this thing. And I'm sitting there kind of bouncing. And then it was the bouncing, the 2,000 pounds of, kinetic energy that eventually broke not the hammock, but the tree straps and the carabiners. The hammock was actually able to hold 2,000 pounds.
Man, that's a testament.
Right? Yeah.
How much does each of the versions weigh?
So weight is, if you're thinking ultralight, if weight is your number one concern, then keep in touch with us. We are working on something that will hopefully reduce the weight further. But weight is not going to be our strong suit. We up to this point, we've been 100% focused on comfort. How comfortable can we make this system? So the standard, again, with the air mattress, skyline stakes, with the rainfly and the bug net, everything, you're looking at about 6.5 pounds. So not ultralight, but comparable to a regular sleeping system, right? And then the XL is going to be about 7.5 pounds, and Safari is going to be about 13.5 pounds.
All right, man. So I'm going to speak up here on something because I'm not like an ultralight backpacker. I'm a traditionalist, but I bought my kids a very small, cheap $30 dome tent from a big box store. And just the footprint was like 7 foot by 7 foot square dome tent, right?
Yeah.
But with your guys' system, and those of you who are listening, this is what you're getting. You're getting the hammock, right? So the hammock itself. Now, oftentimes you have to buy each of these and piece them together. But you're getting the hammock. You're getting the bug net, which often you have to buy separate, or you have to jerry rig it or something. So it comes with the bug net. It comes with the sleeping pad. And it comes with the tarp. So it's an all-in-one system for the middle ground. For me being an XL, that's where my mind's going. For middle ground, it's about 7 pounds. Now, if I were to compare that to the small 7 foot by 7 foot tent that doesn't hang up, that doesn't come with the ground pad, that it's also 7 pounds. So comparatively, you guys are doing great, man. But again, I'm not an ultralight backpacker.
Exactly. Where we start to kind of lose out is if somebody, and I'm just speaking honest here, right? If you're really trying to weigh the ounces and things, if you do have like a backpacking tent and it's a 2 or 3 man, one person carries the tent, one person carries the poles, the other one carries the rainfly, and then everybody carries their pads. And if you do some of that kind of Frankensteining out, you can get to a lower pack weight. We're working our best to beat even that. Like, we want this to be the all around best way to camp, period. But the fact that only one person sleeps in it, then the calculus starts to kind of become a little bit heavier if you're thinking everybody has to carry their own sleeping system. That's kind of where the math starts to turn a little bit. But the pain I've had camping, sleeping next to dudes that are snoring and carrying on and stinking, like just the pain and anguish of that. I'm always going to sleep like by myself, right? Like sleeping solo in the woods, like maybe 100 yards away from the group, is like the most glorious experience. And so, packing my own stuff to me is a-okay.
So before we talk about price points here, I want to ask you about the durability aspects. We understand the canvas. You had it out for a couple years. It's holding up great. The other materials that you said was ripstop. Are there any other materials in there that we need to know about that really speaks about its durability and taking it out in the woods and being around brush and stuff like that?
Right. So the fact that unlike a super light backpacking tent that just is keeping a canopy above your head, ours has to keep you in the air, right? So it's going to be made out of thicker material. So we use a 70D ripstop for the hammock body. And then the rainfly is a 20D polyester, because again, that's just kind of hanging above you. And so those materials are plenty strong for prolonged use. We've had very few of them. Now that we've had hammocks out there in the world for 4 years, we're starting to see what happens. And honestly, I have been blown away by the durability. We have one guy in Norway who he made it a goal to camp every single month. And for what I know, he's still going. I still see his posts. In fact, he posted the other day in his Haven tent. He's out there every single month, the last 3.5 or so years, camping in his Haven tent. We've had people. I had a guy who was a big dude live in his Haven safari for 6 months as he was living on his motorcycle through the US. So we've had these like use cases that are pretty extreme. And I love seeing, as I'm out there looking at posts, Kickstarter edition, because we have Kickstarter editions that are still out there in the world. So it's plenty strong for prolonged, casual, even professional use. We've had people use them for long, continuous stints, and they do really, really well. In testing, I actually put 1,000 pounds of salt in the backpacking version of the hammock. And then our anchor system, I had it on a tractor. The tractor arm wasn't able to hold it anymore. So that's how that one failed. But I still need to like truly stress test an XL and a standard. Maybe I'll do that. I think it'll make for some good content. But the standard and XL are rated to 285 pounds. The Safari is rated to 350. But then that's just erring on the side of total caution, right? Like, we want people to be safe and everything. And so that's why we kind of set those limits a little bit lower than they probably could be.
Nice. So getting started, how much is it going to cost for each of the different models?
Yeah. So the standard is 315. The XL is 335 and the Safari is 345. And again, that's everything, right? And so that's hammock, bug net, insulated pad, tree straps, skyline stakes, everything. And so if you were to try to kit together a hammock system, you're probably going to end up spending more than that. If you go to Amazon and try to do it the absolute most budget way, you would end up a little bit less, but you're not going to have that sleep experience that you get with the Haven tent. Our hammock body has so much more stitching and so much more TLC that goes into it than just a parachute hammock. That's really the biggest, and the fact that you're buying an insulated air mattress at the same time. You can buy it without the air mattress if you have something that's comparable. It'll work. It needs to be the right dimensions of the sleeping platform. I'm way off. It has to be the right dimensions, and then it has to have horizontal baffles because that helps keep the hammock open. That's part of the design.
That's awesome, man. That sounds like it really is a good investment by the sounds of it, man. And the innovation that you guys put into it, it's groundbreaking, I think. So I can't wait to get one for myself.
Yeah, it's the cost of 1 or 2 nights in a hotel, but the view is better, and you get to keep the bed. And so, right. And honestly, I love hearing stories of people saying, you know what, I sleep in it at home now because it is more comfortable than my bed at home. And that's really what we're going for. We're going to just create the most comfortable way to sleep outside. And that's what our customers come back to us with. And what I love seeing is these pockets of havens showing up. And so one of our first customers in Utah was a cop. He showed up at my house. He looked at like where Haven Tents was, and he showed up at my house wanting a hammock. It was like the weirdest experience to have a cop knock on your door asking for a hammock tent. And so we sold him a hammock, and then now he sent me a picture of his last elk hunt. So in the fall, and he showed me 5 Haven tents. So now their entire crew that goes up elk hunting every year, they all sleep in Haven tents because good sleep is contagious. Like one person has this great experience and it's demonstrably better than the way that your friend is sleeping. Like they're going to want it too.
Those of you who are listening, those of you who are watching, and you're trying to think about, is this really for me? Is this really a good option? Now, I'm going to run through the things in my mind that makes the list. First of all, you can use it as a bivy tent or as a hammock. So if you are, backpacking somewhere and all the trees are taken or something else like that, but you still have a flat spot, you can lay it down and you can use it like a bivy tent. All right. So that's number one. Number two is it comes with the bug net. Now, I don't know about where y'all live, but here in Ohio, where I live, like mosquitoes, they're the bane of my existence. And having a bug net that's already included, that you don't have to fiddle fart with it. If you go on the website, you can see how the bug net is used and everything. You can lift up both sides, so you got free flowing air and everything. It's wonderful. Okay, so it's got the bug net. It has the tarp already with it, so you don't have to worry about trying to figure out, well, what size tarp do I need? You can always add another tarp if you really want something a little bit bigger of a space or something, but it's all inclusive. Sounds like for my weight, again, 230 pounds, I'm going to be set at 6'1". That's pretty awesome. I don't like the feeling of being enclosed in my shoulders. Now, you can sleep diagonally in a traditional hammock, and you can get away with that for the most part, but I don't know, like being able to roll on my sides, not have to worry about that angle and stuff. That sounds like a dream come true. It comes with an insulated mat. Now, those of you who've been searching around for a mat, them things get pretty daggone expensive. That's probably the most expensive piece of single gear that I bought for myself about 10 years ago. And it was a heck of an investment. I'm glad I did it. But that mat that's included, and it's insulated, so you don't need to worry about what you call it, cold butt syndrome, CBS. That's a fantastic feature. You don't have to worry about getting that other piece on the bottom of it that's either regular down or more modern materials down. It's all right there. That's pretty sweet. You can use your own sleeping bag that you already have. If you're watching this channel, you already have a sleeping bag, so you don't have to buy a special piece of gear. However, they offer a pretty cool sleeping option by the sounds of it that I'm pretty interested. That's going to be the next thing I research. So all in all, I say this is a win. Man, is there anything else that I left out that you would really like us to know about your products or your company or yourself?
The only thing that you can't explain is just how comfortable it is, right? And that's something that I love when we set it up at trade shows, because people hop in, and one time somebody said it's suspiciously comfortable. I thought that was like perfect, because you look at it and say, oh, that looks nice, but then you get in it and it's like, holy smokes. And I have a whole video on my socials that's just like that first reaction when people lay down, and it's just like, everybody's just like, oh, it's so comfortable. And it's just this common response that we hear again and again and again. And they're blown away with how comfortable it is. And we actually offer a backyard demo guarantee, where if you buy the Haven tent, you try it in your own backyard away from campfire, smoke, or pets. And if you don't like the lay, you can send it back to us. Warning, this is what we call in the sales industry a puppy dog close, because if you take a puppy home, show it to the family, you're not going to be able to return a puppy dog. And that's the same exact concept. You buy this thing, you try it out, see if you like it. Of course, you're going to think it's super comfortable, and you're going to struggle to envision yourself camping in any other way but with a Haven tent. Such a pleasure to be on your podcast today. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story and share this cool little thing we got going on at Haven Tents.
Thank you, brother. If you guys are interested, all the links will be in the show notes or in the description box below. Make sure to check it out. Also, check out Derek's socials and see what his family got into a couple years ago. Man, this has been awesome. I can't wait to pick up my own. Thank you so much. You've answered all the questions I have. And if any of you have any other questions, reach out to them, because their customer service department got in touch with me like same day. It was super quick. And that's just one of the nice features of having a smaller company that you can reach out to and get all your questions answered. And it's
I
awesome.
still manage our
Thank
socials.
you.
So if you have a question for me directly, go ahead and drop it in our Instagram DMs.
Awesome. All right, man. I hope you guys have fun camping. Derek, enjoy your outdoors experiences, and we can't wait to see where your company goes, brother. Thank you. Take care.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Cheers.
Now, thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned a lot about Haven Tents, the company, and Derek himself. To be honest, I went ahead and purchased a Haven tent right after this interview. It was a Father's Day gift. I was so excited. I was telling my wife and my kids about it after the interview and everything. And my wife said, well, if you really want it that bad, we still didn't get you a Father's Day gift. And I said, yeah, go for it. And they bought me the whole kit. And I can't wait for it to arrive. The next video, I'm going to show you the unboxing, and if I have enough time after talking about all the unboxing, I'll show you how I set up the Haven tent in my backyard, because you always want to try out stuff in your backyard before you take it out in the woods, and see my first impressions of it. I can't tell you how excited I am about it, and if you end up getting one, give me a shout out. Let me know you got it, because I'd like to see your thoughts and talk to you about it, because it is a culture. I didn't know it at the time, but it really is a culture that's surrounding this product and this company. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Give a kiss and hug to your loved ones, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.
Thank you, my friend, for spending some time with me today. I hope this episode was pretty useful to you. One of my goals in life is to try to get as many people out in the woods, especially developing their traditional camp crafting skills and, sharing my love of history along the way. In case you didn't know, I have a very growing and diverse way of trying to reach that goal. One of those is my website, www.honorableoutfitters.com. Now on there, that's kind of the hub of everything that's going on. I also wanted to let you know that I have a monthly newsletter. Now the monthly newsletter, again, it's not spam. I put historical articles with tips and tricks and things like that on there. All you have to do is just go to the description box or the show notes, and you can find a link on there to sign up. And I don't sell your email or anything. It's literally just to give you guys more value. And to that end, on my website, I also have a very vast library that I learned a lot from. And I want to pass on some of those traditional skills and knowledges onto you by offering that. And of course, invite you again to join the Traditional Camp Crafters Guild, because that is where you will find your kind of people. And that's kind of hard, especially as adults. Sometimes it's difficult to find people who like traditional camp crafting. And to that end, the Traditional Camp Crafters Guild was born to deliberately put people together to network, share knowledge, and hopefully get you out in the woods with others just like us. So again, thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Give a kiss and hug to your loved ones, and I will see you guys down the trail. Take care.